good morning and welcome to my live Friday cooking session. It's 11 a.m. and yes, greetings from a very, very hot and steamy Portugal. This week we have had a bit of a mini heat wave and yeah, it was supposed to be cooling down today, but it's still rather warm. So I hope the lighting is okay because I've got a few of the shutters down just to keep a little bit of the glare out, but to try and get a bit of air coming through. So if I'm glowing, then you'll know why. So I hope you are all well and that the weather has been kind to you wherever you are. Especially now we're all being able to go out and about a bit more and spending time outside, which is a joy all the time. But it's even better when you haven't been able to do that and when the sun shines. Now in today's session, like last week, we're not cooking. We are going to be looking at making a sourdough starter. Now where this all came from was that last Friday, I posted a picture of a sourdough pizza that I'd made, and a few of you then came back and said, oh, can you do that next week? And I ummed and ahh'd about it because to make a sourdough pizza base you need some sourdough and not everybody has that. So this session is going to be split into two. This week we are going to make the starter, and then next week we're going to make the pizza base. Hopefully your starter will work and you'll be able to make the pizza base. Morning Helena, you're in Uckfield, beautiful weather, lovely. Sussex in the summer or in the good weather is always a wonderful thing. I've been hearing about how the sun's been shining, which is a wonderful thing. So I've got lots of notes written down, so if I keep kind of looking to the side, then you'll know what I'm doing, because I want to make sure that that I don't miss anything. A sourdough is, I just like to say that I am not an expert in this. I have conversations with friends who've been doing this for much longer and they do it a bit differently, but I'm just going to show or share with you how I managed to get my starter going. I've had quite a few failures in the past, the method that I followed, and then we're going to run through it. So first of all, I guess I should introduce you to Bert. So Bert is my sourdough starter, and he smells nice, and it's a little bit musty, I guess, but a little bit sour. And try and show you that he's got some nice bubbles in there. And when I stir him, so I fed him a couple of hours ago, so he's quite happy. And when I stir him, it's almost like like a liquid Aero. I don't know if that makes sense, but you know the Aero chocolate bars that are really light and bubbly on texture-wise. Well, it's a kind of like that, but liquid. Anyway, so this is Bert. Now he lives on my kitchen worktop, and I make bread every other day at the minute, so he doesn't ever end up in the fridge. But I just keep him in the jar. I feed him a small amount every day, and then I never seal the lid. I just pop the lid on top so that there's some air circulating in there. And so I started him when I got back here at the beginning of March, and he's been going ever since. So he's doing a good job there. Which is a wonderful thing. So when I made him, I actually looked at various different websites, and I came across thekitchen.com, and they had quite a simple version because some of them are really, really complicated. And so I went with that one, and I made a few mistakes on the way, and I learnt some really important things. So that's what I'm going to talk through with you today. However, I'm actually going to make a gluten-free one. So I'm going to tell you one thing but make something else. The reason being is I have obviously got my Bert here, so I don't need to make another one. But I previously had made a gluten-free sourdough starter because I'm eating too much wheat, and I actually do better with gluten-free. And it was going really, really well. And then I obviously had a bit of a brain fart one morning, and I put whole wheat flour in my gluten-free starter. And so the whole thing had to get thrown away, which was very, very foolish. So I'm actually going to start another gluten-free one now, and hopefully that will be ready for next week. And then we can play around with making the gluten-free pizza base as well. So I will tell you the two different levels of ingredients. So what you need for your sourdough starter is you need a bowl. So this is one of these bowls that's got a plastic lid, so you can keep it in the fridge, and an IKEA special. And this is perfect. If you may want to use a jar. So this size, obviously not with the red lentils in, but this size jar is also perfect, the Kilner jars. But what you would want to do is actually take off the seal. So you don't need the seal on there, so that when it's resting during the day, you just let the lid fall down. You don't need to seal it. But that's a good size jar to use as well. But I haven't got a spare one of them at the minute. They all seem to have got beans and all sorts of things in it. So this bowl is really, really useful. So that's good. And basically for your starter, all you need is some form of flour and water. And that's about it really. So the type of flour that you use, so if you're making one with gluten in, then I suggest that you use a whole wheat one, obviously, because I promote whole food plant-based. And if you can, use organic as well. Basically because there's less chemicals involved, so organic is always better, but also I think the flour is just slightly more alive. Now, if you can get a locally ground one, so I know dotted around, especially in Sussex, there's various windmills that grind their own. So if you can get like a locally ground one, then that's cool. So try for whole wheat, try for organic. If you can't get those, then just use whatever you've got. I know the flour is still a little bit difficult to get hold of. Because there's been such an increase in interest in making your own bread, which is great. It's just getting the supplies, which have been a bit of a challenge. That's all you need to do for that type of flour, just whichever you've got. Now because I'm making a gluten-free one, I'm using a mix of this Dove's Farm brown bread flour mix, and then some buckwheat flour. This is bought in in Portugal. Where am I? So it's got San Encino on it, but that's whole buckwheat, so I'm using a combination of that. And then for water, then if you can, use filtered water, because one of the problems that I had in the past that I realised was that if you have water, the tap water's been chlorinated, then it's going to kill off some of the bacteria, and it's going to be more difficult for your sourdough starter to ferment. So we have a reverse water filter here, so we've got lovely clean water. If you haven't got a water filter, then you might want to use spring water or bottled water, but then you've got the whole plastic issue. So again, it's advisory. If yours isn't working, then it could be because of the water. It's just another factor. What else did I need to say before we start? Nope, that's it. Okay, so literally all you do, the amounts, that helps, doesn't it? So the kitchen.com recipe that I followed, you used 100 grams of flour of choice, and with 100 mils of water. Now that seems quite a lot because you're going to build on that every day. So you do end up with quite a lot of starter, but that's what worked for me. So you could try with just 50 grams of flour and 50 grams of water, but if this is your first one, then I think it's advisable just to stick with the formula that works basically. For my gluten-free one, which I'm making here, I've actually got much less amounts. So I've got 20 grams of buckwheat flour and 20 grams of the Dove's Farm flour. Now this one I've taken from a website called vanillaandbean.com. Always like to give credit to other websites, because this isn't what I've made up for a change. This is where I've been researching and looking at other people's. So I'm just going to pop them into the bowl. Now, the reason I have got my scales here is the fact that that you do need to weigh things out. So it is, whereas a lot of my cooking is a bit bish bash bosh, this is important to get your amounts accurate. So you need to weigh the amount of flour that you put in, and you need to weigh the amount of water, so that it is the science in this. So it's not, like I say, it's not my usual just making stuff up. So in that, you're going to pour your water. So if your scales have got a mill's measurement, then that's a good idea to follow that. Now, it depends how old your scales are. These are quite new electronic ones that give me all sorts of measurement choices. So if you haven't got that, then just go for the weight, as close to the weight as you can. So you're just going to pour that in. Now for your one, if you're making it with whole wheat flour, you're going to add in 100 mils of water. Whereas this one, the guidelines say 60 mils. And I know this works because, like I say, I've done this one before, but I ruined it one morning by feeding it with the wrong flour. So I put in exactly that, and we're just going to stir. You need to stir it quite vigorously in order to make sure that everything comes together, and it will come together in a thick paste. So there we go, I've mixed mine up and it's quite thick and gloopy. This is gluten free, so you need a little bit more fluid into it, whereas the wheat one, you'll get a similar sort of texture. And then all I'm going to do with that is I'm just going to pop, I'm not going to seal it, just pop the lid on the top, and then I'm going to put it on the worktop. So if you're making yours with whole wheat flour or just normal plain flour, then just mix it with water, put the lid on top loosely, and then put it somewhere in your kitchen. Now, this is where one of the big challenges come, is temperature. So sourdough starters are very, very fussy. So Bert he took quite a lot of nurturing, and so they don't like them to be it doesn't like the temperature to be too cold, but also doesn't like the temperature to be too hot. So that the ideal temperature is somewhere between sort of 20 to 24 degrees Celsius, which I think is about 70 to 75 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, again, it depends where you live, what your kitchen is like, what direction of whether it's facing north, facing south, the time of year. So this can be quite challenging. A lot of things I've read, people say, oh, just cover it with some cling film and put it on top of the fridge, but I tried that the first time and it just went black and disgusting and horrible, so that just didn't work. Now at the minute I have a thermometer here, so in my kitchen my thermometer is telling me that it's 28 degrees, so that is not ideal, but environment. It's a bit warm for him. But this is one of the coolest places in the house at the minute, so he's just about coping. But what I've discovered as well is when this kitchen gets quite cold, when in the cooler weather, he actually likes sitting on the worktop with I've got an undercovered light, the wall cupboard, it's got a light underneath, and that's what he likes. He likes having the light on it. So even now when it's warm, for a few hours a day, I actually leave the light on, and he bubbles away quite nicely and then settles down. So I think one of the key challenges you have making your own sourdough starter is finding the right environment for it and what is going to work. So that worked for me. So if you've got a cooler part of your kitchen worktop, you've got a light, then you might find that works for you as well. You might find that it's just happy wherever, or you might find that if you've got a slightly cooler room, if it is hot, then like a pantry cupboard or something, if you're lucky to have one of those, then it might be better in there. I thought, obviously I have a room out the back here, I thought it would be happy there. No way. Definitely doesn't like living out there, likes being part of the family in the kitchen. So the temperature side of things is really key, because the temperature is this ideal fermenting time. So what then you need to do over the next few days is you need to feed this. Now some recipes get you feeding and discarding starter twice a day in differing amounts, and it gets really, really complicated. The reason I like this recipe was because it was quite simple. Go for they do like routine though, so go for the same kind of time a day. So tomorrow what you'll need to do is weigh out another 100 grams of flour and 100 mils of water, mix it into your starter, leave it and repeat. So you do that for 5 days. By the 3rd day, hopefully you should start seeing some bubbles coming. And then the 4th day, you'll see it actually start growing in the day. So it lifts up and then it will start calming down again. And by the 5th day, hopefully what you should have is after you've fed it, so like 3 or 4 hours after you've fed it, it should be super bubbly and raised up, and you're getting that lovely light aero kind of texture. That's when you know that it's ready. So that would be day 5. So if you make yours today to make the pizza base next Friday, by next Wednesday, hopefully you should have something nice and bubbly to play with. If it's not quite ready, don't panic. Just feed it again, same 100 grams of flour, 100 mils of water, and then hopefully it will be more bubbly and ready to use. Now with this gluten-free one, it actually takes a little bit longer. So this one takes 6 or 7 days. But again, the same principle, I'll feed it the same amount. So every day now I'm going to give it 20 grams of buckwheat flour, 20 grams of the brown flour mix from the Dove's Farm, and 60 mils of water, add it all in. Okay. So, and then it should, by about day 3 or 4, it should start smelling a little bit sour and slightly pungent, but not off, not horrible. So like Bert, he definitely smells sour, but he's not mouldy. So it's quite difficult to explain. But if it smells really foul, then it's gone, it's off. It's nothing that you can save. If it starts sort of like getting some pink like fluid in it or white, then it's gone as well, and you need to start again. You can get, sometimes in the morning, when you go to feed it, you might find that there's that kind of brownish liquid on the top. That's part of the fermentation, and it smells quite alcohol-y. It does smell quite fermented. It's actually a sign that your starter's struggling a little bit. So you can stir that in, or you can discard it and then feed it and have a chat with it and give it some loving care. I've had that a couple of times and then he's come back again. So it's been okay. So that's basically my very quick guide to how to make the starter. I will put all this on the blog post so that you can refer to it. But if you are going to make one, then all you need to do is 100 mils, 100 grams of flour, 100 mils of water, stir it in every day. And by the end of it, if you're using a pot like this, you should be pretty full. You might need to put this in a dish in case it explodes and it's really, really feisty. And you can potentially end up with sourdough starter kind of exploding on the worktop. If you do end up with too much by day 4, and it's still not quite ready to use, then you can just discard some of it. But don't discard too much, because actually what we're going to use for the pizza base starter is we're going to use this excess amount of sourdough starter to make our pizza base. So we're going to need, it's about 3/4 cup, which is quite a bit. I can't remember off the top of my head the actual mils amount. So don't discard too much. Because that's actually what you're going to need for your pizza base, and then you end up with a little bit of sourdough starter left for you to carry on feeding and looking after. Now, after you've got your starter ready, you don't need to keep feeding it such large amounts, and I'll talk about that next week as to sort of like the ongoing care about what you need to do if you keep it in the fridge or if you're going to keep it out on the worktop. But for now, just how to put the starter together is kind of really important. So let me just check if I've told you everything that I needed to tell you today. Yes, just one other thing really is why sourdough? Why is it a good way? Why is it so popular? So the one thing is the fact that as it ferments, it's personalised to your home. So it's actually your own bacteria in your environment which are fermenting the mix. Then you're eating that, so it's kind of it's bringing the friendly bacteria from the outside on into the inside, and so it's perfectly designed for you. If you travel, so if you go away and you take your sourdough starter with you, it will change. It will pick up the bacteria from wherever you are. So it's kind of got its own quirkiness in itself as well. So it is really great for health to have something that is really, really suitable or matches with your environment. But also these friendly bacteria, they're really good for your gut health. So it's a really, really key part of overall health. And I think one of the things that's really come to light with this virus that we've all been having to live through, the restrictions, is that there is a lot that we can do to look after our own health. And food that is eaten is really, really important to that. So looking after our gut is one of the top priorities. And we do that with the food that we eat. So if you're eating some friendly bacteria, eating a lot of fibre, lots and lots of fresh produce, then you are really supporting your gut health, which will then support your own health. If you are a little bit sensitive to gluten, then making a sourdough bread, because it's a slower process, the fermentation actually breaks down some of the gluten and makes it more digestible. So some people who have a little bit of gluten intolerance can actually tolerate a sourdough bread much better than bread that you buy in the shops, because it's traditionally it was made very slowly. It's just the modern way of making things. It makes bread pretty crappy, basically. It's a highly processed fast food now. So this actually can make things a little bit more digestible and a bit easier on the guts as well. And if you use spelt flour rather than whole wheat flour, because that's an older grain, then often people find that a bit more tolerable as well. So if you struggle with it but you like bread, then you might find that sourdough is the answer for you. And there's just something really, this sense of achievement. It's not an easy thing to do, but once you've sussed it and you start using your sourdough starter and you start making your own bread, there's a real sense of achievement and enjoyment. And it's funny, my husband commented yesterday about how much he loves the fact that he's just eating things that I've made at home, you know. So if you've ever looked at the ingredients on shop bought bread, it's shocking. It really is how much is added in. And if you're eating for health, especially if you're trying to avoid certain fats or certain chemicals, then it's really hard, because there is so much. There's often palm oil in there. There's all sorts of emulsifiers, and emulsifiers are particularly bad for gut health as well. So whereas when you make your own sourdough, you're literally just using your own starter, which is made from flour and water, and then you're just adding more flour and some salt and more water, and that's it. That's all you need to make bread. So I think it's really really exciting. But we're not going to make bread, but next week we are going to make pizza base. So that's it for now. I'm going to stop rambling. I hope all that made sense. Do give this a go, especially if you want to make the pizza next week. It just takes a few minutes every day in the morning. Like I say, try and get a routine, try and find the right time for it. Don't forget about it, because otherwise they get a bit upset and then you need to talk to them and give them some TLC. And I'll be back next Friday at 11 and we're going to be making pizza. And in the meantime, I'm going to post another video or two in the week just to explain about my course, because what I've realised from the feedback from my latest course, because it's finishing this week, my online one, is the fact that I haven't actually really explained to people what it's all about. And the feedback that I've got from the latest participants is that they had no idea that it encompassed so much and that you get so much, and they've learned so much from it that they can that they've applied to their lives. So it's really exciting. So I'm going to be sharing some more information about that. My next course starts on the 22nd of June, so I'm giving myself a little bit of time off on that, doing other things. Okay, so lovely. Helena, oh yes, do give it a go, and then we can make pizza next week. Lovely. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the beautiful sunshine, and yeah, see you next week. Bye.